This is just a really complicated product to formulate. You have to make sure that everything in it is soluble. Jonah did it before I started. I think it took him probably about a year to do this first run of product that tasted really terrible. It's way better when you work with professionals. Right now, our Amazon, the new version of the product, it only has 2 reviews so far. They're both 5-star reviews.
So just to start us off here, I'd love to hear a little bit about what's your story? How did you get started with this product? What brought you towards it? What made you want to create this and sell a product in the first place?
Yeah, for sure. So I have always been sensitive around caffeine. So early on in my career, in particular, in my business career, I have always drank coffee from back in the day, and would I think initially just I would be drinking coffee at work and then going into a meeting or something like that, and would feel tremendous anxiety and jitteriness and sort of stomach upset and all this kind of stuff. And I didn't realize it right away that how much caffeine was contributing to those really negative side effects in these high pressure sort of business environments. And then at some point, maybe 5 or 10 years into my career, I kind of realized I had read some blog or something that talked about side effects of caffeine, especially within sort of high pressure environments. And I actually basically switched. I drink coffee on the weekends when there's nothing too high pressure happening, but I basically switched to either matcha or other types of tea, and that helped a lot. And then I, fast forward another 10 years or so, I had just come out of a few cannabis and CBD businesses that I had. I was the CFO at one of them, and we sold at the peak of the sort of cannabis market, and that was great for the founders of that company. It was okay for me. Then I came in and sold another. I became the president and CEO of a different cannabis and CBD company, and we sold that. Not as good of an exit, but it was it's cool.
Sure.
And then I was sort of kind of getting jaded and sick of that industry and was looking for something else. And one of my kind of friends who's an investor in sort of, both within cannabis and within caffeine and other things.
Yeah.
She introduced me to my business partner, Jonah, and Jonah had actually he came up with the idea of a caffeinated breath spray.
Sure.
And he had sort of come up with a prototype product, which he had launched initially, but it was very, very early. It didn't really get any good user feedback or traction. And he was really, he's kind of the creative brains, and was looking for a business partner who was going to be the more strategic business kind of person. And I had been through it all a few times. And he's, younger than me and sort of first time entrepreneur. This is for me, I've done it a few times. And so we just got along really well. And for me, the product that he was proposing was this really, really interesting, what I've always been looking for, sort of without knowing it, the idea of being able to take a really small dose of caffeine in a really controlled kind of way, where you can take as little as 2.7. Each spray is about 2.7 milligrams of caffeine. So, that's a tiny, for most people, that's undetectable. You wouldn't be able to really feel that at all. But if you take 3 sprays, you get, 8-9 milligrams. It's like having a few sips of coffee, or maybe a third or a quarter of a Diet Coke or something like that.
Yeah.
And so, you can use it multiple times. You can take 3 sprays, see how you feel, take another 3 sprays. And it was just oh, wow, this is a great idea. I love it. This is what I've always been looking for. This is now the product that I really use in the second half of the day. I still have a matcha in the morning that kind of gets me going for going from 0 to caffeinated. But then for the rest of the day, I basically use this before I'm in a meeting, before going to a networking event, or going on a date at night. It's you can use just a tiny amount of caffeine to kind of keep you up. And so it just really resonated with me. And I think just the friendship that I've built with Jonah over the, getting to know him and really kind of launching the business together. Yeah, like
Yeah.
it's been
That-
cool.
That's super cool. I mean, the idea of caffeine spray, that's very captivating. I'm a big caffeine consumer myself. And having a way to consume caffeine that isn't such the massive amounts we see nowadays is very innovative and cool idea. So that kind of explains or answers my next question, which was gonna be about the ideation. It sounds like you came to it, your partner already had this idea. It sounded like the idea connected with you pretty early on. From immediately, it sounds like you had all these issues with caffeine, and the idea kind of spoke to you. And he had the idea, brought it to the table, and you guys were able to run with it. Talk me through that first little bit. So you guys have the idea, you decide you want to run with it. It sounds like you have been through many iterations over the years. So how did that first iteration work out? Did you find a manufacturer? Was this you guys tinkering around yourself, or how did you develop this version 1.0?
Yeah, so version 1.0 is really like before my time. So I have to give credit to Jonah for developing version 1.0 and probably like 2.0. I think I joined around the time that he was like version 2.0 was like more or less done, but we're now on version 4.0. So
4.0. All right.
or whatever, I don't know, 1.4 or whatever. I don't know how the numbering works.
Something like that, yeah.
So Jonah is like a really good chef, actually.
Okay.
Like just he's a food guy. He's like a food influencer. He started a supper club out of his dorm room when he was in college that like got all this press, and he kind of became like a food influencer and food critic. He's a contributing writer for Food and Wine magazine. And so he did the initial kind of experimentation with like recipes, I guess, if you want to call it formulas, just out of like a small office kitchen kind of thing. And he did find a manufacturer though that was like one of 5 Hour Energy's like original manufacturers from like way back when they were first getting started. Happened like came across them somehow, got them to like help with going from like it being a little experiment in an office to doing actual manufacturing runs.
Yeah.
And yeah, we've sort of like continued to use that process. Eventually, we in our most recent formulation, we did wind up going with like a flavor lab. So
Okay.
and I think that was like that's a big reason why we finally feel like we have a product that's like worth selling. Is that this is just a really complicated product to formulate.
Sure.
So caffeine is like an incredibly bitter substance when it's in its like pure form.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of like food science that kind of goes into figuring out how to best mask that flavor while also keeping the formula stable.
Yeah.
So like you have to make sure that everything in it is soluble and it stays well mixed. And so, I think we tried to do that on our own.
Mm-hmm.
And Jonah definitely like knows a little bit about this stuff, and you kind of Google it and do some research, but like it's way better when you work with professionals who have done it, who do it day in, day out for like big food companies. So
it's very interesting. Yeah. So first
iterations
was all you guys taking around, finally went with a food lab, which is for this final product you have here. So when you're manufacturing this process, to break it down, is the food lab doing full service for you guys at this point, or are they just making the spray and then you guys are packaging it at another co-packer elsewhere? Or how's exactly does that work?
So the lab basically develops the formula.
Okay.
And that's it.
That's it.
Much. They tell it like, well, they develop the formula and they develop like the key like proprietary natural ingredients.
Yeah.
So, but then there's like a whole range of other ingredients that they've figured out which ones to use. Yeah. And basically they'll tell us, you need to order this, this, and this.
Yeah.
And then from us, you need to order the sort of key ingredients.
Yeah.
Special sauce.
So then you work with, take that formula, bring it to another manufacturer.
Yeah.
Get it all together.
Yeah.
Very cool. So break us down. When you were first starting, what year are we talking that you first started this process, this iteration?
Yeah. So Jonah started working on this in basically in 2021.
2021. Okay, so around like 3 years deep at this point, where you're at right now.
Yeah, yeah.
Cool.
From like that's like really from like the very initial like
Yeah,
idea conception and like kind of tinkering.
sure.
Yeah.
So from that initial period of tinkering, from messing around, how long did it take until you had that viable product that you were able to sell? Get that first manufacturing run done. How long did that take you?
So it was a bit like Jonah did it before I started. I
Yeah.
think it took him probably about a year to like do this first run of product that tasted really terrible.
So you get this product. I mean, you said tasted terrible. Did you still go forward with the sale of it, or was this like
Yes,
okay?
we did.
And how did that go?
Not so good. Like, I mean, it's interesting. You know, we've always basically had a web store, like a e-commerce Shopify store, and then we've also basically always been in bodegas in New York City. Jonah's based in New York. I'm
Yeah.
based in Los Angeles. In these like little independently owned convenience stores, you can basically like go in and drop product off for free. And most of these store owners will be like, okay, we'll take it for free and
Yeah.
we'll put it on the shelf and try and sell it. And then it's sort of on you to come back and and really sell into them. Like once people have bought the product,
Proven itself, and people are buying it, and
yeah, like once they are empty, once the box is empty, they will rebuy it if if you've proven that like it sells,
yeah.
they'll rebuy. But you have to go back to those stores and follow up with them and kind of and people have to have bought it.
Right. And you guys are all doing this yourself. You don't have like a distributor at this point or anything
No,
that
yeah,
process. Yeah.
no. Yeah. The first basically like 2 years, it was just us doing it. We didn't have a distributor. It was, this market, New York City, we learned a lot about
Yeah.
market. And it's way harder. Like it's really difficult to get reorders from
Right.
these places if you're not going in there every week, making sure that the product is still on the shelf, making sure that it has like a little bit of signage that, and it also is just there's so many products in these places, and
So
it's very hard for new brands to like stand out. You really need to you need to have a good product because it needs to be primarily people that are repeat purchasing,
sure.
because you're just not going to get so many new customers, even
Right.
though so the product not tasting good was a major problem
Right.
in
So
there.
the first batch, your primarily method, it sounds like you're doing some e-commerce. You got the Shopify store, but a lot of it you sent to these bodegas in LA, New York City, and kind of just sat there. Didn't really get much traction from there for that point.
Yeah, I mean, I think on both channels, like it was just same problem. Like
Yeah.
you sell the first unit to somebody, they don't come back, they don't tell any friends.
Yeah.
It's so having a product that doesn't taste good is like a very major problem
Right.
for a company like ours.
Yeah, I can believe it. So having the data back in the first one, imagine you get this and you're like, we gotta make some changes. Formula being, it sounds like the main one, if
Yeah.
any. So is that what happened next? Improvements to the formula, or where do you guys take that from there?
Yeah, improvements to the formula was like the main thing that we were working on because it sort of was just a non-starter. Like we couldn't really like get any real data on what was happening because people would just try the product and it was just like it was really terrible. Um, and we and I would say unfortunately we V2 was like it was way better than V1.
Mm,
So if you were comparing V2 to V1, you'd be like, oh wow, this is so much better.
yeah.
But it wasn't nearly good enough to be like good, like for like a repeat purchase kind of
Yeah.
behavior.
Yeah.
But I would say like we found a lot out about the flavors that were working and not working in V2. We initially had like a, a variety of like kind of candy like flavors. It was like strawberry and super sour. And then we had this mint one, and people just like really liked the mint one a lot better than the candy ones. I mean, we would get we still to this day like get requests. People are like, "Oh, I want a candy flavored
Yeah.
version," and that's something that will consider in the future. But the vast majority of people liked the minty flavors, and so we like in V3 we came out with all minty flavors. So it's now peppermint, wintermint, and cinnamon,
Nice.
and these were way better. Tasted really good when we first manufactured them. This is basic. The problem with V3 is that they weren't perfectly stable. And so like for the first 2 or 3 weeks, it's like, oh my God, this is so good.
Yeah.
And then they start to develop off notes.
It's a lot to consider when developing a product like that.
Yeah.
But it sounds like at least with these first few versions, although it's still not that optimal taste, it sounds like you're getting valuable feedback about the candy, the mint flavors, and able to dial that in. So around when was it when you made the decision where, all right, we've been trying enough of this, let's go with a food lab, or how did that decision exactly play out?
Yeah, I mean, I think it was once we were on V3 and we, we had done it a few times, and like we had this like when we first produced it and had those first 2 or 3 weeks when the product tasted great, we were like so excited and proud of ourselves.
Yeah.
And then it started to deteriorate, and we were just like, okay, we're spending too much money on like and wasting too much time kind of going through more and more iterations of the product. It was just becoming such a major, hurdle and setback. It's like, okay, let's work with a professional here. And so that's like kind of, it was just once that product started developing off notes, it was
yeah, that was the time that the indicator to pull that trigger. So it sounds like you got the new formula, version 4.0 from the food lab, and at least the product from that version pretty recently.
Yes. Yeah. We got it just basically. Yeah. I don't know, like a month ago. Like I guess we got the flavors probably a few months ago, and then like once we got all the ingredients and went into production and all that kind of stuff, we basically launched this version like more or less around February 1st. Like more or less. Yeah.
Nice. And get in February, product comes great. Have you been able to see some of the results from that yet come in?
A little bit. I mean, we've pulled like almost all of our kind of like advertising spend, because we're actually also another thing that we realized during all these like first few iterations is that the brand isn't exactly right either. So like we're actually going through a rebranding so that it's still going to be called Pizzazz, but it's going to look and feel a lot different.
Okay.
And that was like a whole, so we haven't really been spending much on advertising during this time. So we're not seeing like we haven't like we just haven't generated too much revenue yet, but we are getting like a lot better feedback from retailers. So like now when I talk to retailers and I give them samples of the product, we're getting a much higher conversion rate on at least wanting to do like a test with us, or like wanting to, give it a shot, take a second meeting. Like, so we're about to roll out in a few different retailers, like testing the product. So I think we are getting way better feedback from, at least in the retail world. And then we'll see, like right now, our Amazon, the new version of the product, it only has 2 reviews so far. They're both 5-star reviews. So it's a good start.
Good start. Yeah.
But it's like, it's not nearly enough data yet to really be able to say like, okay, we're getting the level of repeat purchasing that we're hoping to get. Hopefully in the next kind of to your point earlier, like hopefully over the next few months, we'll have a much better sense of.
Yeah, totally. And Braga, you just brought up a few things there with retail, with Amazon. So, and you mentioned the past e-commerce. So curious, like what your split looks like currently between these things. So you got involved with Amazon, and how you got involved with all these different platforms of selling.
Yeah. So the split right now is like I think right now it's probably mainly retail, but like we're kind of just relaunching this thing on Amazon. And we're considering basically like taking our direct to consumer site and basically redirecting any traffic that we have there to Amazon.
Yeah.
That's like something that we're probably like we're in the process of sort of like redoing our website. And so we may, as we like relaunch the site, it will, I would say most likely be redirecting to Amazon.
Yeah, I know. I'd love to hear it. And so you got involved with Amazon like 3 months ago now?
Yeah, we've been involved on Amazon for longer than that, but it's been with like prior versions of the product. So
yeah.
I don't know. I mean, like, I guess we've been on Amazon for like a year, but it's been with these other versions of the product. And so
Yeah.
I don't know, like, I guess that's the story of Amazon is like we've had a lot of bad product, bad reviews. So.
Yeah, it's definitely a lot easier on Amazon, especially when you have a product that's gonna speak for itself and be, to market itself like that. So I mean, it sounds like going forwards that will be moving in the right direction for you guys. Total in sales on Amazon. Do you have a number like of how much you've done?
Something like 40 grand.
40 grand.
Yeah,
and
more or less. Yeah.
That's very cool to hear. So your journey, so something you brought up, and it sounds like works super well with you, is your partnership. It seems like you guys have kind of came together, had an idea, it worked very well for you, and it's definitely something I hear from time to time of either people in our programs looking to find a partner, things like this. What advice would you have for them in finding a partner, and can you speak to how well that's worked for you and why that's worked so well for you?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is having complementary skill sets where you each do certain things and you hopefully do them really well, and you don't do the thing that the other guy does or the other girl does. And you have great respect for those things that you don't do. So I think both, like, I looked at my partner, his creative contributions around coming up with the idea, coming up with the initial brand, the name, the logo, like the kind of his ability to source like great designers and vendors to produce the product, and kind of like just the general creative elements of the business. I looked at all those things. I owe it to this day, like, look at all his contributions, really value them highly, and they're not my core skill set. And so it's like very easy for me to look at his contributions and be like, this is awesome. So happy to have him as a partner. You know, he's like, these are things that he's bringing that I really couldn't do myself. And him, it's the total vice versa. It's like he had never really like run a consumer products business before. He didn't go to business school, like doesn't do the like strategic planning and budgeting and finance stuff that I have done for years, and just I think felt less comfortable making business decisions and felt a lot of anxiety around making business decisions, and is so happy to have somebody who he can work with who does those things. And so we I mean, I think it's really about mutual respect, and
Totally.
But it would be like really difficult if we were both competing to do the sort of same things and feeling like we each did them a little better than the other person. And there's always going to be like, there's certain things where you need to both be doing something. It's like when we, I don't know, put together like an investor presentation or something, it's like, you know, we're both kind of contributing to that. And I would say things slightly differently than the way that he would say them, but also having a clear delineation of like who gets to make the decision on what types of things.
Right.
So it's, I mean, for us, it's been good because, you know, I basically, when it comes to a creative decision, it's like, Jonah, you get to make that decision and I will accept it. And when it comes to something financial or strategic, I will make that decision, and he respects that. And it's like very clearly delineated who's making decisions about what and who's like the kind of head of each thing or point person for each. So that's what's really worked for the two of us. And I've had other business endeavors with similar kinds of results.
That's great to hear. Yeah, it seems like you guys have really figured out the recipe for success to find a partnership that works, and all those things are great. That was great to hear. It sounds like you guys have a lot to look forward to in the next couple months of the business. having a formula that's great and you guys can stand behind now is obviously a big thing. It seems like with Amazon, this big thing. And also, I mean, it seems like you mentioned increased physical retail presence.
Yeah. Yeah. I hope so. I mean, it's all like tests,
Yeah, yeah.
we'll try you out in a few of these stores and we'll try you out in a few of those. And so, yeah, as long as like it all goes well over the next few months, like I think we're going to be in a great position.
That's great to hear. Great to hear.
Okay. Awesome.
Cool, man. All right. Well, you have a good one.
All right. Thanks,
Good luck.
Connor. You too.